I'm Ira Joy, and welcome to On Courage, a podcast that explores a fundamental virtue for each one of us, no matter our backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. After a career setback, I wrestled deeply with self-doubt and fear, eventually realizing that in order to rebuild my confidence, I had to start by rediscovering my courage. I've been reading books and listening to experts, but I figured I needed to be surrounding myself with courageous people too. And that's why I'm here with you as you listen today, hopefully on board my mission to learn from creative people who have harnessed the power of courage to find success in their careers and fulfillment in their lives. This is a podcast on courage for all those who, like me, long to grow a little more courageous each and every day. Today's guest is the very wise and inspiring Ruth Song, a creative career coach, industry leader, and entrepreneur. Ruth's story is one of fascinating transformation, from being a shy and reserved child and a college student who was told that her voice wasn't good enough for radio, to then successfully building a career in media and education as a communications specialist, doing important work in helping others find their voice. Ruth offers so many valuable insights around harnessing courage, embracing failure, and learning to advocate for yourself as you strive to live a happy and fulfilled life on your terms. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Ruth. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ira. Nice to see you.
Great to see you. Can you tell the viewers where you are right now?
I'm in sunny, kind of sunny Singapore. Singapore's hot all year round, but today's a little bit cloudy, but still very sunny and very hot.
Well, thank you for joining us from Singapore. We're so excited to chat with you today. But before we dive in, I'd love you to just give yourself a little intro just about who you are and what you do in a snapshot.
Sure. Thanks, Ira, for asking me to come on this podcast. Super excited to share a little bit of where I've come from and what I've been doing for the last 20 or so years. But just a little bit about me. My name is Ruth Song, bred, based in sunny Singapore. Currently, I'm the Chief Program Designer at my working title. It's a career design firm in Singapore. We help people to have conversations about careers and how to design their careers to generate possibilities so that they can start taking validated, informed experiments to decide how to live their career life in a fruitful and thriving manner. So previously, I used to be in radio, and I was in marketing, and I was in hotel. I've just been around the block quite a fair bit. In a quest to find out, what I'm truly all about. And right now, I'm in a space where I'm just giving back and happy to really have that conversation with people about the new age of careers, especially in the world that we are going into as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic.
Happy to share a few more
Awesome.
things later on.
Yes, I'm sure we'll learn more about the actual work you do, which is just so unique, but also really important. But before we get to that, I'd love to rewind the clock
Yeah.
and cast our minds back to little Ruth Song. Whether your memories, whether they start as early as 4 years old or 10 years old. I just want to get a sense of the kind of person you remember you were at a young age, and whether or not there were certain experiences or little memories that you have that may give little hints to you becoming who you are today.
It's funny you asked me this question. And it's very funny, like how this whole conversation started, because my first memory was when I was 3 years old. And actually, I haven't told you this, but it was actually a memory of fear. My first memory was actually being scared of a dog. So I was outside of my house wearing my shoes. And previously, I know about this neighbor's dog, happy with this dog. And all of a sudden, that fateful day when I was 3 years old, the dog left the house and started chasing me. And I remember distinctly running away, screaming, and hiding under the bed for like the entire day and just being afraid of that dog ever since. So whether I saw a small dog, big dog, dogs in arms, dogs on a leash and all that, I was constantly afraid of dogs. And for some strange reason, after that, my entire life has always been like things I've been scared of, like bugs, creepy collies, talking to adults. That was a big thing because actually my dad told me that when I was growing up, one of my nicknames, even I remember, was something called golden mouth. And when you think about it, it's like, what on earth does that mean? So golden mouth means that your entire mouth or your teeth is made of gold. It's so precious that you don't even dare to open your mouth for fear of something dropping out and losing your gold. That was how reserved and scared I was about just interacting with people. So I always remembered that my life was I grew up just being very shy, extremely scared of everything. If there was a loud sound, I'd just jump. And so my mother distinctly told me once, I'm very scared how you're going to turn out next time because if you're scared of everything, you can't even order a drink from the drink store. What's going to happen to you? And I actually took on that fear myself. I asked myself, what am I going to do in life? And so as I grew up and went to school and all that, I actually went through school fearing not knowing what I was going to do because there was nothing that I was truly interested in. And I kind of was like told by people like, oh, do this, do that. And because I had no sense of wanting to do anything on my own and I was fearful if I chose to do something on my own, what happened was I listened to everybody. If you ask me to do A, I'll do A and I'll do it really well. Ask me to do B, I'll do B and I'll do it really well. And so that was how I grew up, just being very obedient, being very quiet, not saying very much. I didn't want to inconvenience people. And I was afraid how people would take what I said. So that's how I grew up. And so the leap from that to here to where I am today, I think you can tell that the energy is, if it's not a bit different, it's very different. I'll took quite a few leaps forward.
If we can unpack a little bit more about, you growing up, because that's important to your story, having that early memory of being fearful and being a generally maybe anxious and fearful type of person. It's so brave of you first to acknowledge that, but obviously we'll talk about the transformation later on. But I know that you've told me previously that you are the eldest child in the family, and we share that. We have that in common, and perhaps some of the personality that you kind of develop, and the expectations and responsibilities you feel are influenced by where you fall in the family. So I want to know more about how you navigated that as you grew, as you became a teenager, and as you started to think about what you would, what kind of job or what your future would look like. If most of what
Yeah.
your decisions were based on what other people were telling you, what was that at the time? Where were people kind of directing you to?
That's a great question because so I was telling you that I was very obedient, and that was because I had a younger sister, so just two of us. And my younger sister was the complete opposite from me. Like if you asked her to go left, she would just go right. If you asked her to do A, she would do Z. And she came at a time where our family was going through lots of difficulty in our family with financial difficulty. I was sick for a time. And then right after I got well, my mom went on to work. And then so I took on a lot of the responsibility of taking care of her and making sure she was on the straight and narrow. So I tried the best that I could. So everything my parents did, I set the example for her, to the point where it came when I was in going to graduate and I was going to take a diploma. So in Singapore, what happens is you go to primary school, go to secondary school, and then you have to decide, do you go to junior college, which means you take on like very theoretical subjects, or do you go to something like maybe a TAFE in Australia would be more similar in understanding, like a polytechnic to go to it. So I knew that was very hands-on and I would go to a polytechnic, not a junior college. So a polytechnic. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. There were a few things I wanted to do. So I wanted to do computing and I wanted to do hospitality and I wanted to do like early childhood. But my mom looked at all my choices and said, no, they're all terrible choices. You will be overworked. You will not earn any money, and you probably don't have interest in it. It just sounds, sexy and interesting at this point in time. Since your results are great in English, so my English results were quite good. She said, okay, since you can make it to mass communication, you should go in there. My jaw dropped when she said that. I'm like, hello, this person here is not for mass communication, because mass communication is about talking and being in the limelight and just making sure you capture people's attention. She's the one who told me I can't talk to people. I have problems, interacting with people, and she's asking me to go there. I mean, I had my doubts. I really doubted, but because my mom said to go there, so I said, "All right, I shall do it." So I signed up for it, and the first day in my first lecture, I knew I made the wrong choice. It was everything that I knew it was going to be and worse. And I just didn't dare to speak out. I was very quiet, very reserved, and everyone around me was so expressive. They had seen all these films and they were able to talk about the films, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" It was so bad that so this whole course is 3 years long. In the first 1.5 years, at that mark, I told myself I'm gonna grab the withdrawal letter, the withdrawal form. I'm gonna sign it, and if my mom doesn't sign it, I'm going to forge a signature. I'm gonna sign it because I'm gonna drop out. I can't deal with this anymore. And it just so happened I was telling a friend of mine who is a few years older than me about what I was intending to do. Not my mom, of course. Telling this friend, and my friend said, "Oh, God has a plan for you. Since you have, stayed for 1.5 years, why not do the next 1.5 years? It's not that long." So I said, "Okay, maybe I will." And so even though I hated everything, I said, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to just suck it up and do the next 1.5 years." And the next 1.5 years didn't change anything, got worse. I
Wow.
still had no idea what I was going to do at the end of the one and
Yeah.
a half years. But towards the end, I was taking something that I thought I could manage, which was radio. So radio doesn't require you to be seen by anybody. I had a problem people looking at me. I had no problem like recording things and talking and doing it well. But when people look at me, I'm like, "Oh, that's a bit much." So radio is fine. Nobody sees you. So I liked radio enough to say I'm going to pursue this as a future career. Like that's something I want to do. So the logical thing was I don't have any contacts in radio. Let me go ask my lecturer how. Like, can she introduce me to somebody? I don't mind if it's not a big radio station, just a small, tiny thing would work, but I just need some help. So I last few days of school, I go to her and I ask her, "Hey, Miss So and So, I'm really interested in radio. You've seen me work with you for the last 1 year. I think I did pretty well. Can you introduce me to someone in the radio industry?" Bling bling, pregnant pause for a very long time, very 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 long time, and I was like, "Die!" My heart started to sink. And the next thing that came out of her mouth was not something she ever told me, and it was something that I went, "What?" She basically said, "You don't have the accent for radio." And I'm like, "Huh? What?" I didn't ask you about my accent. Like, what's that got to do with radio, right? And she just said that and she just left it at that. So I had no idea how to continue the conversation. So I think I just abruptly left. But I basically cried for 3 days and 3 nights. And at that point in time, had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea whether I even wanted to continue with life, so to speak. So that was a bit of the first time I actually took a step out was the time that was the biggest rebuttal or the biggest rejection of my entire life at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's tough to hear, like especially when you're on the verge of just starting, you're a
Yes.
young adult about to graduate,
Yeah.
college, university, and to be told that so blatantly is just, heartbreaking. And I feel for you, but I think it's, obviously there's a good outcome to all of this, but at that
Of
time,
course.
it probably
Yes.
added a lot to, your traumas, because having been told a few different things as you were growing up as well, like even
Yeah.
that little joke that your dad said, or that
Yeah.
people just assuming things about you based on
Yeah.
what they can see, and
Yeah.
that I think growing up is hard because you're still forming your own identity, and
Yeah.
if people are already adding those labels on you, you
Yeah.
just, and especially I think for older siblings, as at least, it was the same for me, that you just accept what people
Want to
tell
read.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And same with you, with you choosing certain trajectories in your studies. It was based on people, like even your friends saying, just finish the course, or why don't you
Yeah.
do mass communications. Like, yeah, it's so interesting how we allow people to influence our decisions,
Yeah.
subconsciously. And it's not as if people have bad intentions. It's more that they want to be helpful, because I'm sure your
Yeah.
mum wanted to steer you in a direction that she knew was going to help you
Yeah.
achieve success.
Yeah. And I think it was the expectation that if I said yes enough times and if I agreed with people, one day someone's going to agree with me. And that will be the day that people will
Oh,
give me that
right.
biggest break, which is why that the conversation with my teacher went so badly for me, because like all my life I've been giving myself to people. People should say yes to me now when I finally made a choice. And I realized, no, it doesn't happen that way.
Yes, that's interesting too. Like that, yes, that you'd think that what you give comes back to you, which in some way that I know that happens, but it's that expecting you can maybe control an outcome when you can't.
Exactly.
You don't
You
know how
can't.
people will react or respond. And okay, so when
Yeah.
you had after that moment, you had your time to sort of deal with that trauma, to be told those words, and now rethinking your career path. What was the
Yes.
next step?
Yeah.
How did you get
So,
yourself out of
I'm
that
not sure if
hole?
I ever got over the trauma. Maybe I'm not, because I'm still talking about it to this point. But I laugh about it now, because 3 days I spent crying and like wondering, what am I going to do with life? Am I just going to be stuck in a dead end job that I hate? Um, One day, my junior called me. So I'm in third year. Someone who's in the second year called me and said that, hey, I'm interning at a radio station, and I've been asked to look for someone to take over my role, but on a full time scale. And I said, what are you doing in the radio station? I mean, I couldn't sort of hide my excitement, but I was like, what are you doing? Oh, write radio programs. They're trying to start this English radio programming department, but I've been only here for 2 months. That was how long internships were at the time. So 2 months, I can't finish it and I need to launch it, but I'm not available to do it. Would you like to try? And I said, hey, my teacher just told me that I can't make it on radio. I don't have the accent for radio. And now this person is asking me to do it. So I had two choices. I could say, you know what? I've just been told by Miss So and so, she knows the person because we were both from the same school. Miss So and so said, I can't do radio. I don't think I am up for this challenge. But at that point in time, at 20 years old, I realized I don't want to let people determine what I should or should not do. And if by any means or any chance that someone says no to me, it's because I chose to try. And if you say no to me, it's fine. I didn't just give up that chance. So the other second option was I'll just go for the interview and see what happens. So I chose to go for the interview to see what happens. I mean, the worst thing they can say is your accent doesn't work for radio, right? That's the worst thing they can say. It can't get any worse. And I went for the interview. So it's this really small radio station. It's non-profit. I wasn't even thinking about money at that point in time. I'm just thinking, can I get this gig? So I went to it, non-profit. Everybody spoke either Mandarin or some dialect in Mandarin. No one spoke English. So when I got there, the person interviewing me told me, you're literally in charge of the whole English section. You have nobody else who is going to help you. That's all that you can take on. And I went, me? How many times a day am I supposed to be on radio? 3 times a day. 3 times a day, me.
Wow.
Like me. And like there's nobody helping me. So I'm doing everything from research to producing the thing to editing the thing to actually presenting the thing. And she said, yeah, that's it. That's your job. And I said, okay, cool. Can I be on radio? I mean, my voice isn't the greatest. And she said, yes, no problem. And my jaw dropped for a second time in 3 days, because my interview was like 30 minutes. I'm a 20-year-old graduate. I have no working experience. And you're telling me you're supposed to take over like the English section? Aren't you supposed to have like 20 years of experience? And that was the time where I was like, do I do it or not? Do I, hide behind that whole facade of no one's told me I can do it. I don't think I can do it. Actually, other people have told me I can't do radio. Should I hide behind that facade or should I just say heck it? Whether I know or don't know, there is an opportunity. So I should just do it so that I can learn along the job and figure it out along the way. And then I told myself, well, what's the worst that can happen? If I fail, I fail. So I told them, sure. When do you want me to start? But looking back at that, I was like, that was a bold move. That was a crazy bold move. But that was the time where things started to change so much for me.
I love that story. I love that story because, just as you said, this is where the transformation is beginning, because there are a couple of things. Because you were still experiencing those doubts based on
Yeah,
what people had been telling you, but you said that at that time, at 20 years old, you don't want someone else to determine where your life takes you and the decisions you make. So I think
yeah,
having that awareness and then this opportunity presented to you, which I think is kind of like, a divine intervention.
yeah,
You can say it's a coincidence, but it feels like that was meant to happen for you,
yeah.
and that was, in that moment, you had that call of, as you said, the two choices. What do you do? And for you
Correct.
just to have that, I like to call them like little bursts of courage. You just had that, like, little, as you said, it was a bold move, but like a little burst of courage just to put your hand up and say, yes, I'll
Yeah.
do it, is just so amazing. So I'm keen to know what happened after that and how, as you said, things started to change.
Yeah. So radio, I've always been enamored with radio, and so when I got the chance to do it, it was a chance of a lifetime. For everything that I could not do when I was young because I was scared of this and scared of that, I had to do it. I had to go call people like who did not know me and say, "Hey, can I invite you to speak on my radio station or my radio show?" And this person's going like, "Who are you? What's your radio station?" And I had to introduce myself. I had to talk to them because I was the only person in the entire station that could speak like very fluent English. Guess who was in charge of translating newsletters from Chinese Mandarin to English? Me. Who was in charge of entertaining the groups that came? So we had groups, children's groups, like kids groups to see what a radio station does. We had like people from the community coming to see. Guess who was leading those groups? Because I was the youngest in the station as well. It's me. So that situation or that whole time just taught me how to speak up, do public speaking, not be afraid. So even though I could hide behind the mic, I still had a lot of interaction up front as well. Along the way, I also figured out that communication is about clarity as well. So I went to fix my accent, so to speak, by taking classes and all, and being better at just speaking. And that taught me a lot of things. That taught me that if I were to fail, I would fail by my own choice. I wouldn't fail just because someone told me do something and then I fail. And then I blame the person and the person says, I mean, it was your choice, right? You didn't have to say yes. That's not something that I wanted to live my life. Like if I failed, it's because I did it. I chose to do it. And if I chose to do it, then I choose to decide how I want to get out of it. And so from that particular experience, it taught me that I need to push myself out there. I call it exposure therapy. Because around the same time, I told you I had this insane fear of dogs at 3 years old, right? I've been afraid of dogs for like ever. And then at that same time, I was staying over at a friend's house, and for some reason, she locked me in her room with her two Jack Russells. Two Jack Russells. She locked me
Okay.
into a room
She
for
just
her two
locked
Jack
you in
Russells.
there.
And I'm like, hello, I'm scared of dogs. So I'm sitting on her dresser the whole night screaming my head off, and her two Jack Russells are like trying to get at me, and I'm like, get me out of here. Um, then by the next morning, me and those Jack Russells were great friends. And after that, I was not afraid of dogs anymore because I spent a whole night with two Jack Russells. So from that day on, I believed that if I put myself out there, that I would become less afraid of everything. So I was afraid of public speaking. I decided to choose situations where I would have to speak in front of people. And if I fell flat on my face, that would be it because I cannot be scared of simple things like talking to adults. So I remember that at a wedding a wedding that my friend was, my friend's wedding. she she trusted me to be a MC for 500 people. I was like, 500 people? That's crazy. Me. And I said, okay, exposure therapy, right? So I went to do it. And the first thing I said, I know the bride, I know the groom, they're my best friends. Instead of saying the groom's name, I said the groom's father's name. I wanted to dig a
Oh.
hole and die right in the middle of that, but somehow found it in me to continue MCing. Everyone had a great laugh, and I realized, sometimes when we are fearful, we create stories in our head, we create images in our head, and then the images stop us from moving forward, or from like saying, you know what, people didn't really think very badly about it. Like the dads found it really, really, really hilarious that I called his name. Um, so people don't actually have that same level of anxiety and fear as we do, but because we have all these images in our head, we think the problem is so big, but actually to people the problem is like this big. Then that's how I realized that if I don't put myself out there, I don't exercise that muscle of like just trying the same thing again and again, I'm just going to be afraid of things, everything. Whether it can be dogs, I was afraid of riding a bicycle because I was afraid of falling off. I was afraid of driving. So when I failed for the third time, I told my then boyfriend that I am not going to drive anymore. I think I suck at driving. And he said, no, I'm going to pay for you one more time. You are going to drive. And I told him, okay, since you believe in me, I'm going to learn how to drive. And then I got it on my fourth try. So I just realized that sometimes, I'm not the fastest learner in the world. And so for me to get over things, I needed to try. I needed to put myself out there.
What do you think drove you to just give things a go, creating opportunities for yourself to uh, work through the fear, to, as you said, you wanted to fail on your own terms. You didn't want to just live your life by other people's standards or what
Yeah.
they dictate. But how do you even begin to do that when you've come from a childhood where you were so shy and you were so scared? Like, what do you think was the main motivator for you to just start making different decisions and actually, they always, I hear it all the time when people say, if it scares you, that's a
Mhm.
sign you should do it. And a lot of people, it works for them, but I'm trying to get myself in those moments. I think that's not always motivating for me. Like, if I'm scared, I'm like paralyzed and I don't know what to do. So I'm just curious about, your
Mm.
mindset around that, and how and what it was for you that actually just made you take that step, and just, as I said before, just have that burst of courage.
Yeah.
Whether it was riding a bike, learning to drive, emceeing
Yeah.
in front of 500 people, like, what was the thing
Yeah.
that you believed that the risk was worth it?
Great question. Yeah, I am not one to just say, yeah, conquer your fears, everything that makes you fearful and scared, just go and do it, because that's a bit crazy. Um, okay, I'm just going to talk about at this point in time, okay? At
Mhm.
this point in time, I'm fearful for a lot of things. I'm still fearful of stuff. But one of the things that helps me to say, okay, I'm going to try this versus not going to try this, is going back to remember how it felt when I didn't try. I always remember that when I was growing up, there was one instance when I spent a lot of time creating a worksheet. Like it was, I remember very distinctly, it was a worksheet about mottos. So like, come up with different mottos, taglines, slogans for different, I don't know, was it products or companies or whatever, like come up with
Advertising.
like an
Yeah.
advertising, like come up with a
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
them. I spent like a whole evening working on it. I loved it. I was like, this is my best work. I went to school and my friend comes to me and say, hey, you finished that piece of work? And I said, yeah, I finished that piece of work. Oh, that looks good. Can I copy it? And I said, I mean, I'm not going to lose a friend. And like, I didn't want her to copy, but I wasn't going to lose a friend. So I said, okay, copy. Very unwillingly. And then I distinctly remember that my teacher asked us who wanted to present their work. I didn't want to present because I was scared. So my friend who copied my work presented. Teacher went, fantastic, great job. And I went like, what? That's work. And my
Wow.
friend didn't give me any credit
Oh,
whatsoever.
goodness.
Whatsoever. I was like, I mean, the friend thing is a different story together, but like, didn't get it. And I
Wow.
distinctly remember that
Ruthless.
if I don't speak up for myself, if I don't advocate for myself, I'm not going to get what I want. I mean, like, as much as I was shy and reserved and all that, I still wanted attention. So I
Yeah.
knew that I craved recognition, I craved attention. So I craved also learning new things. So as I grew up and went through that whole process, I realized that if I keep hiding behind other people are going to take my credit. Am I okay with that? I wasn't okay with that. So no. So anything that required me to learn to speak up, interact, communicate, that was something that I wanted to work on. And I
Yes.
chose different situations that would get me there. When people didn't want to do things that involve public speaking, I was the one. Do you think I could try? I was
Yeah.
teaching for 10 years and I never done a hackathon in my life, like this design sort of hackathons for like corporates. Nobody in the department wanted to do it, like MC it and like sort of facilitate it. I had no experience. I said, sure, you know, I'll do it. And I did well, and I did a great job. So when I see what comes my way. If it's something that fits within my vision of like communication, communicating, interacting with people, because that gives me joy, that gives me fulfillment. Sure, but if it's like like dumping out of the plane or like touching poisonous snakes or like some other
Yeah.
random thing that's like fear. I'm like, no, I'm too over it. Thanks. Thanks, but no thanks.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
yeah, so that's something that I always tell the people that I work with. Like, think about the time when you were not happy. Like you did something and you were not happy. Like, what was that? Then think about a time where you felt fulfilled, not just happy, like you buy a new bag and you're like happy for the next 3 days, sort of happy, but like you felt it made a
Yes.
difference to your life, your emotions, your whole being, and compare the two. Then you will know what you need to step out a bit more of. And then I said, choose small things. Don't go crazy and do a 500, like speak in front of 500 people. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel like people think that, oh, I need to increase my public speaking. You're like really shy and reserved and like, all right, I need to be better at public speaking. Tomorrow I'm going to sign up and speak in front of 500 people. First, no one's going to let you do that. Secondly, it's too far of a stretch. So I
Yes.
believe in
Yeah.
the stepping stone sort of thing. Put stepping stones in front of you, small
Yeah.
little tiny stepping stones, so that you just move forward. It's not important that you jump to the end so fast. It's more important that you're actually moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we maybe are looking at the idea of a challenge or like, getting outside of your comfort zone, because you hear that a lot from people, really high performers, that you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to do things that scare you. But perhaps for people that are lacking a little bit of courage, that's too big a task. As you said, it's too big of a stretch. And challenging yourself doesn't mean you have to go from 0 to 100. It's just going to that like first step and seeing, what your is in within your capacity to do, that just pushes you and it helps you improve just a little bit more. I think maybe
Yeah.
the way we think about challenges and personal development, it's too magnified for some people. I think if we
Yeah.
take things down a bit, as you said.
Yeah. One of the things that people have told me after I tend to like to talk to people. I'm a very different person now. If you told me to do things and I didn't want to do it, I would tell you, no, thank you. Which is it's a far cry from where I was before. But I've expressed to people, wow, I did this, and I'm like, I'm so excited. I was so scared. I was so nervous, when I was preparing, and that people have told me, you think too small of yourself, and I was like, did I think too small of myself? And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, thanks. But now I've begun to tell myself and also to reflect it to people now that when I say that. to people and they say that you think too low of yourself, I'll tell them that thank you for your feedback, but relatively to where I was before, this was a big jump. Because people have an idea of how far you should be and how much you should view your own achievements like and then you don't look down on yourself, don't underestimate yourself, but like who knows how much of a mental and who knows how much of an emotional jump I took to get to here.
Yes.
It's I mean, to you it's like a
Mm.
2 hour talk, but to me it took me like a week to psych myself up to get it
Yeah.
done. And the fact that I nearly wanted to give up, and I came here and I did it and I smashed it out of the court. It was a big jump for me. So I tend to now tell people that what people tell you is also a radio that's playing in your head. The more you let other people tell you how you should think, the more you are going to think that way. And is it in sync with your own personal radio? Oh, I love the radio pun.
Yes. Yeah, I love your radio analogy. Yes.
And so now, and I've never actually told people, thank you very much for your feedback. I've like, oh, thank you, and then full stop. But now I
Yeah.
also tell them the reality of it because don't look down on me. Where I've come from is very different from where, and they need to know that.
Yes.
So for those of you who are trying stuff, and people tell people like, oh, that was a small thing. That was something like you could have done that, no problem. Tell them thank you very much, but it took a lot for me to get to where I am here. So, but thank you for feedback.
Yes, it's kind of like yeah, it's courage is relative to your situation.
Yes,
And no one can understand that truly except yourself. And as you said, people come with their good intentions
yes,
mostly. They, you know, they have perceptions of you. They see potential, they see all these things, but they don't actually experience it firsthand like you do. So that's important, not to compare yourself to how others are perceiving you,
yes,
if that makes sense. Because
yeah.
you should be able to think about yourself for yourself.
Because the problem that a lot of people feel today is that the social, like internet, like social media tells you to hustle. If you do this in like a month, you will win. Like you will not win. You will like earn like $10,000 or $20,000, and you'll be famous and
Mhm.
blah blah. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, sure, it works for some people, but for the rest of us, we need to work really hard to get there. And so we downplay our own trajectories, our own ways of getting to certain places. So
Yeah.
having also reframing your own talk to yourself and actually talking to yourself in a very strategic, very structured, and a very objective manner can also help you to take the next step and move forward, because a lot of times we are like, I've done this for 6 months, nothing seems to be working, I shall just give up. Let's do something else, let's throw in the towel.
Yes. I think that's very you've hit something that's close to me as well in terms of being hard on yourself. Never celebrating your achievements. Like my sister always tells me that that's one of my weaknesses is like I can accomplish something, but to my standards it's like nothing. You know, like because it's not where I, yeah, it's not where I envision myself to be, or it doesn't compare to what other people are doing that I have defined is successful or
Yes,
worthy of acknowledgement. But when you actually look at it, it's an accomplishment, it's still a milestone, it's still something to be proud of. But as you said, we downplay that a lot, because of comparison, because of the other radio stations playing infiltrating in our minds. So that's really important thing to note is yeah, learning to back yourself and learning to appreciate the things that you're capable of doing, even though it doesn't seem like much. But then again, it's the reframing because what is much? I think it's very unique to each individual. Wow, yeah, that's got me thinking a lot. So I'm gonna try to change my mind about that, like change my
yeah.
mindset.
I think one of the things as well is, yes, we can change our minds. Like, yes, we can talk to ourselves and we can reframe whatever we say to be more positive. But the thing is, the next step is important. So Stephen Colbert said this: failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, but this time a little bit more intelligently. So if we see failure as a feature of the system, not a bug, Not a it was a by chance thing, and like it's a feature, and I am
Yes.
going to fail. Then if I take small little steps that lets me fail sort of like at a low risk low stakes sort of situation, then the next time I do it, and I do it within a very short amount of time, what's going to happen is that I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to be better at doing whatever I wanted to do, and I'm
Mhm.
going to do better, of course. And because I do better, innately your confidence is boosted, you have more courage.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, that's the what my next question was going to be for you, because we're in a culture where success and the outcome, the tangibility of the achievement or whatever it is fixated on a lot. You know what I mean? That's the main thing. How much money do you earn? How many awards have you won? All those kind of things, and we don't really discuss the failure part. As you said,
Hmm.
it's a feature, not a bug. It's inevitable on the road to success. So I'd love to hear more about how you've experienced failure. And you said before, making decisions where you know that failure is a possibility, but you're
Hmm.
doing it on your own terms and you're
Yeah.
embracing that. So if you're happy to share some of the failures you've had and how
Yeah.
you navigated them internally, that I'd
Yeah.
be really interested to know.
It's very interesting because I haven't had a catastrophic failure in my life. But if you were to ask me whether I feel like I am a failure in comparison to people, I feel like I have made certain choices that haven't been useful for my career. If I had, done something else, I would have, if I had a chance to live my life again, I might have chosen a different career and all that. And then I always come back to that same core message, like, what am I here for at this point, at this stage? At this point in the stage, my goal is to help people to communicate better, to be able to generate possibilities for their career. My goal is not supposed to be like, I don't know, CEO of some Fortune 500 company. My goal is not to lead a team of 1,000 people. I would hate that. My personality does not, I don't like doing that. My goal is to be a great mother, and I tell myself that I may look like a failure to people, but again, whose failures, standards, matrix am I judging myself on? So instead of metrics for like failure or success, I think that's a bit arbitrary for me. Um, I choose to set growth metrics. So if I were to say that in June, so like 20, now it's 2024, like in June, I mean, well, now in February, and like from now to June, like what are some things I could possibly accomplish by June? And then I will work towards it. So I'll set the time, do my plan and all that, and then I would work towards whatever I wanted to do in June, and then I will start to make midpoint corrections. I never actually have a I've done it sort of point. I've always have a midpoint correction or like your 3.25 miles correction, pivoting point, because like if I
Yes.
say I'm a failure, then what do I do next? That's a label I put on myself, like you are a failure. But if like I tried something, but what I'm trying, my strategy isn't working, then at this point in time, I'm going to make the executive decision to change, to pivot, to do something to make sure that it works. Because the problems that we have now in life aren't black and white. They're not like, oh, the printing machine is broken. Go find someone to fix it. That's a black and white problem. The problems that we face now are super dynamic, super complex. And so if we like success, failure, like, no. Just, I feel like don't let yourself be boxed in by that. Let yourself be guided by metrics you set for yourself for certain things and challenges that you want to do. That's
Yeah.
so much better for your mental health.
And I
That's,
think that I
yeah.
think it's so true when you say it like that you have to be the one to set the standard in the context of your personal life, your personal
Yes.
goals and ambitions. But I think that's something we don't you really have to make time for, because it's hard to think. It's not something we do by default, I think, because I feel like society and culture has sort of dictated conventional markers of what success is.
Yeah.
There are like certain things, and maybe the rites of passage of life, building wealth or securing property, or like learning, different things that set you up in that the standardized way, having a job, or like being in a relationship, getting married, that kind of thing. So, how does one start to do that, to even think about what success means to them and
Mm.
defining it on your own terms? Like, what are some things that perhaps you did when you started to figure out what, how,
Yeah.
as you said, your growth matrix that you
Yeah.
developed for yourself?
Yeah. So let me rephrase that question just so that I get what you're trying to ask. And
Hmm.
that is, so how do I set up these matrix for myself? And how do I
Yes.
move away from success and failure?
Well, or redefining or reframing what this idea of success, as you said, it's
Yeah.
arbitrary for you, but like
Yeah.
in the,
Mm.
moving away from the conventional standards
Yeah.
and
Okay.
trying to make it personal to you.
You will always have that whole society's expectations of you to have a family, to have a stable job, to have all these good things. And there's nothing wrong with wanting those things. Like I want money, I want a nice car, I want a
Of
nice
course,
house,
yeah.
I'll go for a holiday. And all my
Of
like I
course.
have a friend who's like some, regional VP of marketing of some famous like big hotel chain, and she's flying every single week. Every time I look at her
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm like, I'm stuck here. Why am I stuck here? I think one of the things is that if you need to earn money, like money is important for you for whatever reason, like your parents, your family needs it, you need to pay for your kids and all that, and you need to focus on making the most amount of pay at this point in time. Go ahead and do so, but also at the same time open back doors and open possibilities for yourself. I think the worst thing that I did for myself is that I was so focused on pursuing recognition from people. So, like, after I learned to have my own voice, I started to like, yeah, I want to do this and I want to do that. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to have like three jobs at the same time. I want to show
Yeah.
people I have it all. And then I realized that that killed me. Was crying every night, couldn't eat. I had weird pains. The doctors couldn't tell me what's wrong with me. Hair was falling out, the works. And then I realized that, I can want all these things. And if I can manage them and physically I feel okay, the relationships in my family and with my loved ones are okay, good for you. Well done. But for creative, very sensitive person like myself, it was not possible. I could not chase all these things and then have my cake and eat it. And then I realized that I needed to open up, needed to have that conversation with myself. What am I actually chasing about? Like, is this really, does it jive with who I am? I had to spend time reflecting on myself. I had to spend time being vulnerable and opening up closets that I did not want to be in. And to tell myself, like, although I want to do so much, I'm only capable, like, seriously, I'm only capable of this much. So I had to make peace with that. It took me, no, it just really took me forever just to get to that point. I'm now at that point because of circumstances. Like my family situation, I have two kids, one's 11, one's 1, does not allow me to do this, even though I want to do this. So if you
Mm.
mercifully have nice, friendly people like kids to help you go and understand your circumstances in reality, that's good. But don't wait for too long. If you can sense that the divide, the gap is too big, it's time for you to have that conversation with yourself or with a trusted one, with someone that you know about what's really working for you, and sort of re-navigating your life in that direction.
Something you touched on as well is assessing, your intention and the why behind these desires that you might have.
Yeah.
Because as you said, they are not bad things. Like, if you want to be someone who travels a lot, or, have a nice house, they're not that bad things. But
Yeah.
it's more a case of, why do you want them? Is it really as a personal growth thing, or is it because it's motivated by I want to be able to show off to somebody. I want to be able to prove myself to my social network. So I think, yeah, it's about sitting down with yourself and just really assessing what's the reason behind
Yes.
why I want these things.
And something comes to mind when
Yeah.
you mentioned that Simon Sinek has this framework called the golden circle. So it's three concentric circles. Just imagine three concentric circles, one right in the middle, one small one right in the middle. And basically, he uses it for like companies and being inspirational and all that. But I use it as a way to guide where I'm going in life and whether I'm off course. So the innermost circle is why. The second circle is how, and the outer circle is what. A lot of us are very hung up about the what we're gonna do and what we're going to achieve in life, and then we're hung up about the how, and then we get hung up for many years, and then at a certain point in time, you go like, "What was that all about? Like, what was I doing that for?" And you look back and you're like, "I wasted 20 years when I never felt happy, never felt fulfilled. I was just chasing something." And then there's the
Yes. Yes.
why in the middle. So once we
Yes.
figure out and clarify the why in the middle, that's when your how and your what sort of fall in place, and you don't have to go like, what shall I do with my life? I have the decision paralysis. A lot of my friends like, I can do this and I can be that, and like, what should I do?
Yes. Yes.
But why
That's right. Yeah.
you want to do that?
That's
So
what
yeah,
Simon Sinek, he's well known for this whole start with why.
yes,
Is his book and his,
correct,
that concept. Yeah, that is so true. It's so
yes,
funny how we that innermost circle gets overlooked
yes,
because the outer two are really they're very external. It's
yeah.
very influenced by how people perceive us or how we're going to achieve our goals. It's not really an internal
Yes.
personal purpose or mission.
Because it's easier to
Yeah.
think about the what and the how. It's easy to make it fun and sexy and like cool, but it's not easy to come up with the why. And the why requires a lot of
Yes.
self awareness, but people are too afraid to be self aware. So that's going to be hard
Yes.
to sort of like get your trajectory going.
Yeah. And I imagine, in your line of work, and, I'd love to kind of explore more about this awesome job that you have. These are probably some of the challenges when you're talking with your clients, you're helping them, build their careers. Is that something that the connection to the purpose of why they're choosing specific pathways that you feel like most people need help with? Is that,
Yeah,
as you said, the lack of self-awareness
yeah,
for why they're
yeah.
deciding certain things?
Yeah, because in our, I'm not sure about the Western world, but in the Asian culture, where in Singapore is very Asian, a lot of times people ask, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And that's a what question, right? What question? What do you want to be when you grow up? So we've been taught about this whole idea that I need to have one career and that one career is XYZ, and it's something that my parents are very happy about. But the world that we are moving into is very different. And I'm realizing that, the generations that come after us are not so concerned about the what and the how, because the what and the how comes really fast, like easy with technology and Gen AI and all that. And so the question shouldn't be, what do you want to be when you grow up? The question should be, what problems do you want to solve? And why do you want to solve them? And so now we're taking those questions, because if I ask you, why are you here on earth? My student, who's like an 18-year-old client, who's looking at me and going like, what on earth are you talking about? And I get it, because
Existential question.
like, what? And so I work backwards. So I ask them, what problems are you interested to solve? Like, what are those things that really annoy you, right? Some say that, oh, like, I have a disabled loved one, but when they go to the hospital, they can't find things. When they go to the MRT, the subway station, they can't get to the right deck, the right platform. So I'm really interested to make wayfinding more accessible. And like, good, very good. All right, so let's look at your entire life, and let's like look at your life journey. Let's look at your values. What do you really value based on your life journey? Let's look at your skills, your strengths, and all that. And then when we have all that information together, then I ask them, what patterns do you see? What trends do you see? Based on those patterns and trends, and then going back to the questions, that the problems that they want to solve, and then I start to ask them like, why are you here? Like, why are you doing all these things? And then they go, oh. Now, then the why starts to take shape. It's not fully form, it's not clear. And anyway, people's whys change all the time, depending on the
Yes.
stage in
Yeah.
life. But it helps them to get clarity on the why. So that's something that people are increasingly more aware of, because they're realizing when they know why they are here, the next step is a lot clearer. But if they're just here to earn a diploma, or they're just here to earn $1 million. To a lot of people right now, it sounds very, I don't know, very empty.
Yes.
And like,
Yeah.
so why should I do this? So it comes back to the question why. So that's a technique that I bring my clients through, just to help them. But I never ask them point blank, why are you here? It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Which is very daunting. I mean, it's daunting to hear at 18, but even, in your 30s, 40s, 50s, I think that is a confronting question for anybody, because
Yeah.
it is quite an existential sort of spiritual thing. I think, as you said, it is, in many ways a matter of identity as well. And I
Yes.
found that with a lot of young people, the next generation, they're still figuring out who they are.
Yes.
So it's hard to know what your next step is or what you want out of life when you still are not clear on the person that you are, and,
Yeah.
and what your calling in life is meant to be. So I think they're really important in the work you do, and I think a very holistic approach in terms of providing career support and mentoring, because
Yeah.
you don't often see that. Like, most of the time it is very pragmatic. It's like, okay, you want to work in law, you need this degree, I'll
Yes.
help you build your resume. It's kind of, so I'm curious more about the other techniques that you employ in your line of work. And in many ways, it is the mentoring process that you take people through. It's helping them uncover their hidden potentials almost. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to know more about
Mm.
other things that you help people
So
discover about
yeah,
themselves.
we do capability development, so like how
Yeah.
to do resumes and all that. But that's
Mhm.
not enough if your folks or the people, the clients that you work with, have no idea what they're capable of. So
Absolutely.
you can teach people to like write resumes and all that, but I'm beginning to realize that Gen AI, ChatGPT, could write a beautiful resume for you. But if you don't feed ChatGPT the stuff that you want on your resume, it's going to come back to nilch. So one of the ways, or one of the key components, and not just for my students, but for anyone, and even for my own life, one of the things that I keep harping on is courage to do certain things is not going to fall on your lap. You've got to try. And when you try, don't try it in a haphazard way. So I don't know if you're aware of the saying, like, throw pasta at the wall and see what sticks. Are
Oh,
you
can you repeat that for me?
throw pasta or throw spaghetti at the wall
Throw
and see
pasta
what
at the wall
sticks?
and see if it
What
sticks.
sticks?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yes.
familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
a lot of that's what I did all through life, like just exposure, right? Just try everything and just throw it at the wall. I right now tell people, like, if you don't know what you want to do, then okay, fine, try everything. But when you try everything, think of it as a project. Don't think of it as something that you had to do. So when you think about a project, there's a start, there's an end, but there's also the after action review. So after you finish the project, what did you learn about yourself? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Would you do it again? Would you not do it again? Why would you not do it again? And so on and so forth. But have that reflection and then take down notes so that you have the data points to be self aware. Because a lot of times they're scared. So, okay, I want to be an accountant, but I'm not sure how it would be like to be an accountant. And so the first thing they do is, let's go study for 4 years at university for accountancy. And I'm like, 4 years for accountancy. And then if you don't like it, how? They said, then I don't know. I don't know. But no, like 4 years is 4 precious years. Like, I know you can transfer the skills of accounting, but you don't want to kill yourself for 4 years studying something you don't like. So rather than jumping in and making that huge investment in time, huge investment in money, do small experiments. Like, go follow somebody at an accounting firm for a day. Do you like what they
Yes.
do? You may not do what they do, but at least you get the sense of like the company. This is what the company's about.
Yeah.
This is the vibe. This is the culture. Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Um, do those multiple internships, 2 weeks long. As students, if you're a younger person, as students, companies are more willing to take you on. They're more willing to be very forgiving. 2 weeks, that's fine. Just do small experiments to test, because I've had someone tell me, I've studied physics till PhD. So she's at a doctorate level. She comes to me and says, I hate physics. I don't want to be in physics anymore. And I'm like, you've spent a lot of time and money in physics. What are you doing? I mean, I didn't say that to her, but my brain was blown.
Yes.
My mind was blown. Like, hello. And I said, okay, I mean, you shouldn't give it all up. Then, have you thought of any possibilities? And she said, no, I'm no possibilities. And like, what do you want to do? And she said, I have no idea what I want to do. So I asked her, is that something you actually enjoy? And she said, actually, I enjoy leading teams. I like managing people and I like leading teams. And I said, oh, cool. Okay. Have you ever thought of being in a lab or like some sort of firm, manufacturing firm that deals with all this physics stuff, but in the HR function? And she said, never thought of it. Didn't know that it existed. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Maybe you should start looking at short courses in HR to see, how you can bridge that gap. So if you've never tried and never exposed yourself to the possibilities in that realm, and you just throw yourself at making that big decision, you are putting a lot at risk. So one of the key things that we help our people to do is to take small risks. We had a group of creative people, so they were doing other jobs. They're all over the place doing other things. Some wanted to be a podcaster, wanted to be a singer, and blah blah blah. I said, cool, come together, let's get you a fund. So we got a fund together, and we're going to give you $5,000, $5,000, no strings attached. Go launch an EP, go launch a podcast, go start your fashion label, like at least have one or two pieces that you could possibly sell, and see what happens. And then there was this gentleman that actually started a podcast, went through the whole gamut, did this whole thing, and then walked away realizing podcasting was not for him. He wasn't ready
Yeah.
for the he wasn't ready for the amount of time it took. He wasn't ready for the research. He was really more interested in business that he was doing, a business course that he was doing, but he thought podcasting was sexy, so that's what he wanted to do. And I said, great job.
Yeah.
People says that that's a failure, but to you, you just save yourself a ton of time. So that's a success.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a big thing that I make people do. Generate your possibilities for yourself, then go and get it done by
That's
small
right.
experiments.
Dip your toe in,
Yeah.
and especially when you're young, you have the luxury of time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's still that period where you don't feel like you're needing to hit certain markers. I mean, maybe young people do feel pressure though. Maybe that so society standards has kind of conditioned people to, by this age you have to do that. But I think the message has to be that
Yeah.
experiment.
And
Dip your toe,
yeah.
because the risk is greater otherwise.
Yeah. And even if you're not young,
Yeah.
like you're not a student, right now I still run experiments for myself. So when I was
Yes.
working full time, I always had the idea I was going to work for myself. But I never knew whether I was capable of doing it for working for myself. So when I was working full time, I started to run my own consulting training business on the side. And then I asked myself, could I do this for the rest of my life? Or like if I quit my job today, can I do it? And I built my skills up so that I could get that done. So whether you are 18 years old or 38 years old, running small experiments and reflecting on them work, and keep them short. Don't do 6 months experiments. Don't do 1 year experiments unless it really calls for it. But otherwise,
Yeah.
keep it short and sweet. Half a month, 2 weeks, fortnight, a month, and then start to learn from it.
And having that, I think that mindset that learning is for life,
Yeah.
that learning is forever, that you should always be open, that you'll never, reach a place where none of us can know every little thing there is to know about life, the world of life. It's about following that interest and being open and creating little opportunities. I really love that. So in all of this, obviously you're giving so much value to people who are really, in many ways, lost about what they're striving to do in their careers. But I want to know, from your perspective, what's the most rewarding thing about the job that you do, and really being so instrumental in helping people build their future.
I think the most rewarding thing about my job right now is knowing that I came from a place where I had no courage to do anything. I had no information, I had no desire, and most of all no courage to move out of my comfort zone. Like, so I would just stick to what people told me to do. And now I get the chance to tell people that I know your mother told you to go and do this XYZ. Are you happy? If you can tell me from the bottom of your heart you're very happy, good for you. I mean, like, I'm happy for you. But if you tell me that I'm not happy, then let's do something about it, because on hindsight, you can still make your mother happy while still feeling sane about yourself. You can do that. You can straddle the two, but we have to have that conversation about it. So the most rewarding thing is that light going off into people's eyes, and then realizing I am not stuck. I can take steps out. It may just be lateral. I'm just like one leg in, one leg out. And if you're happy with that, then it's good. Because for some people, it's not about doing like conquering Mount Everest. It's not about, making that $1 million. It's just the fact that today I stood up to my boss. Or maybe not as big as that. Or today, I decided where to go for lunch. That makes me happy. And
Yes.
I'm like, good for you. um because
Yes.
I just want people to make choices that they are happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the most
And to
rewarding
help
part.
them, that's great. And help them to get unstuck, because any kind of progress is still progress, no matter how small or how slow you go, as long as you're doing something and not kind of dwelling in the helplessness or the hopelessness that people can sometimes feel when they
Yeah,
don't have a clear view of what's ahead of them.
yeah. But I'm just going
And
to say
so on a
one more thing.
person,
If there's one more
oh
thing I
yes,
could
of
just
course,
say.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so as much as I say go keep doing things and like keep moving, there comes a time where you need to sit with yourself and face up to what's happening with you. So I don't want people to walk away from this podcast going like, yes, go, rah, rah, rah,
Yeah,
let's keep going, because you will burn out. And I burnt out like a few times. Like
that's
the
true.
latest time I burnt out was October, like literally last year, because I kept going without sitting on myself and facing the issues I was having. So courage is also sitting with yourself and facing up to your realities. So as much if you don't feel like waking up and getting out of bed to do stuff, don't. Like, stay in bed, take as much time as you need to sort of feel that energy to then get up and like, okay, what's happening? What's going on? Do I need to recalibrate, or is it just one of those days? So that's just something that I wanted to leave with people, because that's crucial. Please don't hustle, hustle, hustle and then die.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think a big important part of, yeah, your message as well is that whole reflection
Yes.
aspect. Having, in a way, to having that courage to sit down and reflect in stillness. I think, to be vulnerable and to confront your own weaknesses, your own failures, all your fears.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage too. So having that balance of, yes, movement, and having drive to work towards your goals and all that, but at the same time stopping, and it's kind of like the program that you take your clients through. It's that you do the thing, you have the little experiment, but then you have the assessment at the end. and
Yeah.
reflect on how things have gone. Well, I'd like to ask you now about, if we're going to review or reflect, everything that you've told me today about your journey, starting off as the little girl who your dad called the golden mouth, and and being so shy and reserved, and to now being a leader and a really strong and eloquent communicator. When you think about your life, your journey, and your career, what's something that you're most proud of that you've accomplished over the years?
I'm proud of who I became today. Like, I look at the little girl at 3, 4, 5. even 20 years old, when I was 20 years old, at that crux, at that moment, I see myself as like, I've grown so much. That's incredible. I'm proud that I took all the leaps of faith. Like some of them I didn't do well in. Like I failed. I fell my face flat. It's okay. I'm just glad that I took the chance, because if I didn't take my chances, I would not have grown to be who I am today and have impacted the people that I've impacted.
We've talked about it a lot, and we've learned about how you perceive what courage is and how you've harnessed it in your life. But kind of as to summarize, Ruth, how do you define courage?
So, courage is not being afraid of making the wrong choices, and also having the courage to face up to certain choices that may not have worked out the way you wanted it to work out, and then having the guts to pivot, having the guts to say that I am not going to hang on to something that isn't working for me. I am going to call it at this point in time, it's not working. Let's change. That's real courage. And it could be the fact that, right now I am in this job. I don't really like it. I'm just going to call it. I'm not going to give it another year. I'm not going to give it 2 years to see whether things work out. I'm just going to change things. Either I am going to change what I'm working as, or like internally how I'm working, or I am going to change my location, not here anymore, it's somewhere else. So, or it could be like if a relationship with someone that is close to you is not really working out, I'm not going to be in that uneasy sort of like, are we good? Are we no good? I'm going to take the courage to step up and have a decent conversation about it, and having things clearly laid out. And if I need to be
Yes.
trained because I don't know how to do it, I will get trained so that I have the courage to do it. But I'm not going to wait anymore. So I think that's courage, just to see things realistically for what it is, and then making a choice to do the next step or to take the next step.
Yes, yes. And exactly what you said earlier as well, that's all about advocating for yourself. Knowing that you do have the agency to make the right, or well, a decision. Doesn't have to be right, doesn't have to be wrong, but you are capable of making a decision and taking action, and not, dwelling in the fear and the doubt. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And I like to think of courage as sort of being one of the core virtues that we need in
Yeah.
life, or that we need to learn to harness better, amongst other things. But like, if courage is kind of the main course, if it, that's the thing that's going to fuel us towards the dream lives that we have. What other traits or virtues or mindsets do you think best accompany courage? So, if
Mm.
courage the main course,
Yeah.
what's a good side dish?
Uh, You know, that has been an interesting question. So I was thinking about it, and then I'm like, what else goes with courage? Because courage is like my jam, right? And I realized that
Yeah.
two things, tongue in cheek or seriously, I'm really forgetful. Like things happen, and I'll forget about it, and I'll be like, yeah. And sometimes you need a bit of that. You need to be forgetful. Like, don't hang on. Like, let it go. Like, detach yourself. So some people cannot detach. They ruminate and ruminate and ruminate for days and
Yep.
days, and they cannot detach. And I understand that, because I used to come from that whole ruminate forever, right? And then I realized that, so what if I hang on to it? I No one's carrying that burden except me. And I've got stuff to do. I've got stuff to like take care of. Like I can't be carrying this and everybody else's things. So that's when I decided I am verbally going to say I'm letting this go. And then when the thoughts come back and it's not in service of me, I choose to divert my attention to do something else. So I am forgetful in that sense. So
Yes,
like
I see what you mean.
detach. So forgetfulness and a healthy dose of optimism. You
Yes.
never know, like what you said earlier, you never know if you're getting to something where you have a full idea. Like half the things, I would say 100% of the things that I did, I hadn't had a full idea of I was getting into until I got into it, and like, oh. And I think that if I was too realistic or too practical, that might not have worked. Healthy dose of optimism. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it's fine. I learned something. So
Yes. Yeah.
it
I
comes with
love
this
it.
too.
I
Sorry
love
to
it. I
just
think they pair really well. Really well together. That's a good meal. It's a good
good
balanced meal.
wholesome meal.
Good wholesome meal. Is there anything else, Ruth, that you'd like to share with our listeners in the context of everything we've chatted about
Yeah.
today?
Um, so when you see me as someone who's very effervescent and very happy. I'm actually tested by MBTI as I am a true blue introvert. Like I am an INFJ. Like I am introverted to the max. And so I would say that if you are inspired by my story, that's great. But don't let me be your benchmark. You will not, probably your story does not will not match up to mine. But one of the things I can tell you to do is, or to tell you, is not to box yourself in. Don't box yourself in too early. And there's never a time where you should box yourself in. Like even at 40, I'm trying not to box myself in because the possibilities are endless. So set for yourself, all right, certain projects, certain goals you want to achieve. Set a time limit for them, and then decide where you're going to pivot after that. Learn and reflect. That's a key thing that is crucial. And then after that, make choices based on that information that you got, to improve and increase yourself. That's the way to increase confidence. It doesn't come like that. It's not just forcing yourself to do things you hate all the time. It's do it and then learn. Do it and then learn and then do it often. Do it early, do it often, get feedback. That's how you increase your courage muscle. If you stop doing it, then your courage muscle sort of gets a bit like dystrophied. But as you get there, try small things. One day you will reach a point where you realize I have made a difference. I have become different from 5, 10, 20 years ago.
Awesome. I'm sure, yeah, people listening will be very, very encouraged by that, and please just rewind and listen to it over and over again. You just got to try, fail, and repeat, rinse and repeat. You just got to keep going.
Learn intelligently.
Um,
Do it intelligently the next time.
Yes, yes. Now, Ruth, I just wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge you and express my gratitude to you for not only taking time out of your day to chat with us, but for being a real example of courage. And I know that when we met at RMIT University years ago, that we didn't get to know each other on the deep level like we have now, but I do remember you as someone that was already so full of life, someone that was confident. So even though you're telling me that you by nature an introvert, that's not what I saw. You
Yeah.
seemed like someone who presented with so much joy for life.
Yeah.
And hence why I wanted to reach out and see what you've been up to all these years, and to hear your story from your childhood, and how you've transformed, how you've managed to get through the adversities and make yourself, the person you are, the confident person you are now, but also someone that gives back to other people and helps other people find their voice and find clarity in their future is so inspiring to me. And I think that you help me reflect on how I can tap more into courage, because I've had similar experiences of people assuming things about me, or feeling down on myself and feeling not capable because of the stories that I've told myself in my head. So you've helped give me some clarity on what action I can take to improve and to find the little stepping stones you mentioned, just those little bits of courage every day. So thank you so much for that, Ruth. And if people want to connect with you and learn more about what you do, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not that, roundabout Instagram that much, but LinkedIn for sure. So just type Ruth Song, RUTHSONG, and you should be able to find me.
Perfect. Well, Ruth Song, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ira. It was a fantastic time talking to you, and I hope to catch you soon again.